All right, brilliant.
Well, everyone, welcome back to a very exciting episode of the Storybox podcast. Today, my friends, I'm delighted to welcome Elliott Ross on the show. He stars as Prince Cederic in the highly anticipated, it's out right now actually, Disney Plus series, The Quest, which is based on the popular 2014 ABC series of the same name. You can go check it out right now. I haven't had time at all because I'm currently in the process of moving to sit down and watch the show, but I promise him that I will watch it when I get all settled up there. It looks fascinating. I've seen the trailer. That's about it, to my extent of my knowledge. But I'm looking forward to diving further into the show with you in a moment, Elliott. But you can also be seen in Apple TV's upcoming miniseries Masters of the Air, which is done by my idol, Steven Spielberg, the sequel to HBO's award-winning Band of Brothers. I love that show. Very, very addictive. You also do independently, you work as a personal trainer too, just to add to the other things that you do in your life. Fitness, wellbeing, and mental health are extremely important to you, as they are to me as well. Elliott, man, can I welcome you so much to the Storybox podcast today?
Thanks, Jay. Good to be here.
Good to have you here, man. Can I ask you the very first question I did want to ask you is, what does success look like for you?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good question. Big question to start off with. I think it depends on what you set out to do. So I think, and that will change at different points in your life. Are you asking about career success or about success in life?
Could be life success. Does it carry over for you in terms of life and career, or is it just one complete version for you?
Yeah, good question. Well, let's call it life and assume that career is an important part of that. I think currently for me, success is kind of how well I kind of live my life according to the values that I've chosen are important. Am I achieving the things that I want in the areas that I think are important for me? And those include kind of personal growth, joy, a sense of calm, a sense of adventure, relationships with friends and family, and relationships with relationship people, and then of course career. And they all for me, they're kind of changing goalposts all the time. So I'd say my version of success is how well I kind of manage to do all those things at once.
I like that, man. It's a good version of success, I think. And I like how you mentioned values. And what are your values?
Well, I kind of listed them off there, the ones off the top of my head. Joy, definitely.
Yeah.
Growth, learning all the time. Adventure is a really important thing for me. I want to feel like I'm constantly discovering new things, and I'm a bit nomadic at the moment. I've moved across the world to LA, and it's halfway across the world. I think fully across the world would be Australia to LA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been halfway across the world, London to LA. Fitness is a very, very important value of mine. I kind of my personal fitness is something, but it's kind of a way in which I kind of measure how I'm doing. I just think it's really important. Those are some things, I guess, and I guess just being a good guy.
To me, man, like, and I've just met you. You seem like a pretty down to earth and good guy to me. Why are those your values? Like, have you looked at the reasons for why they fit into your life more specifically and over the course of your life, picking them up? I mean, you mentioned joy and fitness as well and being part of it. And I've always been curious, like, what is joy for you? Two questions there.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you think today, man.
No, it's good. It's good. I like it. This is what I'm here for.
I promise we'll get into the show in a second, but we're gonna build up to it.
No, this is good. So how do you arrive at the values that you think are important? I think you need to go through kind of you need to go through a couple of rough patches, right? You need to have a couple of fires to know how to put the fires out. And I think it's kind of been trial and error. And until I worked out with what things do I need to prioritize in my life to make sure I feel the way I want to feel most of the time, I think. And obviously, I think most people want to feel joy, but I think what I started looking for in my decision making was, does this bring me joy? It's a little bit more specific. And then I started saying no to things that don't. Which I think was really good. I had help, worked with a life coach and a therapist. You could kind of help me discover these things about myself. So I would say that's how I discovered them.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I won't ask you to, unless you're comfortable with sharing some of the rough patches and what actually happened. But I've always been there, and mental health is really, really important. So, yeah, man, I'm just always curious. What advice would you give to someone that is going through a rough patch at the moment?
I think get someone to recommend you the right book. Because there have been certain times in my life where reading the right book has really shifted my perspective or my thinking about the way that I'm feeling. And I mean, I think everyone has rough patches in mental health, and without going into too much detail about personal crises. There have been moments throughout my 20s where I was extremely low and lost, and that it kind of prompted like an explorative journey into self.
Yeah.
And I would say some of the books that I read really, really set me on my path. One that comes to mind straight away was The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Got me started on Stoic philosophy, which for me has just been kind of a foundational pillar going forward. And that's been really helpful. And just kind of instilled in me the value of always practicing excellence in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
Like when things aren't going well, how can you still be excellent? How can you still maximize this opportunity? How can you still be the best guy? And actually that's been really useful, because it makes you feel invincible in a way.
Yeah. Ryan is an alumni of the Storybox. I was blessed to be able to speak to him for his latest book, Courage is Calling, but I love his other books too. Obstacle is the Way is probably one of my second favorite books of his. Courage is Calling is probably now my favorite.
Yeah. Oh my God. See, I'm privileged to be on the same podcast as him. He's been his books. I've got all of them. They've been huge impact on me.
Likewise, man. What have been, because you're an actor, right?
Yeah.
Like acting and getting into the space in LA is no easy thing to actually do. And I can only imagine there would be a lot of lows and a lot of highs at the same time. So you're in this rigmarole, man, of starting out, trying to get your career off the ground. You're trying to keep everything in line, in focus. So what have been some obstacles that you've faced, that you're comfortable with sharing, obviously, involving acting, that you've had to sort of push through?
I would say that the first obstacle that I had I think there have been two that come to mind. One is kind of is like a personal life setup thing, and the other was a professional thing. And I think both have been quite challenging obstacles. I think when you move to a different place, full stop, it's losing. You're moving to somewhere with this like crazy adventure. It's hugely exciting. Life is very, very fun. But what you're doing is you're moving away from a safe space. And I think when I got to LA, and to a certain extent, still haven't found somewhere really that feels like home. Like I'm bouncing around between apartments and stuff, and everyone I've spoken to who's moved to LA has said the first 6 months to a year is very turbulent, trying to find somewhere good to live. And it's definitely been that's been hard. It's been hard, kind of not having my home environment set up in a way that aids my work. There's been kind of that is mostly a logistical problem, because most, lots of my work does happen at home. All my auditions are self-taped, and I don't know that a huge amount of people in the city. So it's just that's been an obstacle. And then I would say the second obstacle was kind of choosing who to work with over here. I had lots of meetings with management companies and stuff, and that took a lot of time. To kind of find the right person, and kind of, and also to feel happy with the decision that I'd made. But I read another really good book on this, on decision making. It's called How to Decide. I can't remember who wrote it actually. I listened to the audiobook, but it kind of introduced the notion that there's no such thing as like a bad decision. Like a bad outcome doesn't necessarily mean you've made a bad decision.
Yeah.
So I kind of looked into that and how I can make a decision with my management and the people that I choose to work with at this pivotal time in my career. Like how can I do that and still be happy even if the outcome isn't good? That was fun. And stressful at times, but I made a great decision and I'm pleased with the outcome. So I think choosing the people that you choose to surround yourself with, especially in LA, seems to be a very important consideration.
I think I need to get that book, man.
Yeah.
How to Decide. That is such a great title of a book.
That's what it says.
Goodness. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are, including myself here, trying to figure out what decisions are the right decisions to make, especially with a life-changing decision, as in moving from, for you, London to LA, and deciding at the same time who to work with and what projects to pick up. I mean, can you really be picking and choosy with starting out?
Yes and no. I can't be picky and choosy with lots of things, but I found myself saying no to most things that come through in the UK at the moment, because I think although I'm a fairly new face on screen, I'm quite experienced in my theatrical work in the UK, and I think now that I'm at this new stage in my career where I'm on Disney Plus and I got this show coming out on Apple TV, I think the decisions I make moving forward are really important. Having said that, I am quite new in the American market. I'm quite new in LA. So I want to audition for everything so that lots of people can see me. I think the projects that I choose to take on will have been carefully selected by myself and my team. So yeah, I guess there's an issue of caliber and wanting to work with people who I think are who are gonna be people that can help move forward with me in my career, / are roles that I think will diversify myself as an actor.
Are you happy currently?
Yeah. You mean in my career?
In your life, career, the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. I feel like I'm in a transitional period. And I think there's happiness in knowing that things are moving forward and that you're growing up and that you're like, I'm doing things that are quite challenging, and I think I'm doing an all right job of them. And when I don't, I'm aware enough to learn from it. So yeah, I am happy. I'm a little overwhelmed sometimes. It's kind of, things are like, going at 100 miles an hour at the moment, but yes. And it's nice to be able to say yes.
It is.
Yeah.
And actually knowing that you are happy with where you currently are. I think because not a lot of people can actually say they are. I think in actual honest terms, like when you ask them a question, they automatically say yes. They haven't really thought about it too much. Like,
yeah,
if I was to really say yes, do I really mean it? Am I happy? Can I look at my life and all the things that are going on in my life right now? Does that equate to happiness, or does it equate to not being happy? And both are okay. Like, I think there's so much emphasis on saying yes more than saying no.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just learned to be accepting and comfortable with not being happy at the same time as sometimes that I will be happy too, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you don't have to be happy all the time. No one is. I feel like I'm dropping lots of books that I've read recently, but
I love books, man. My whole book cabinet, all my books are under my desk at the moment.
Yeah. Did you read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
I did. Mark Manson. He's also been on the show too. Another great conversation.
He's brilliant as well. So he there's in that book he says happiness is in problem solving. And if you pick the problems that you want to solve, the problems that you want to solve most, that's where your happiness is. And I think that was that rang pretty true with me. That's been a pretty useful piece of advice. And I think you're in the right place when things start to feel easier. I can't really explain it. Like, just I think geographically, because I'm feeling the difference in LA. I'm dealing with things that come up, and I'm productive, and I'm a kind of a brighter version of myself in a way that I wasn't finding so easy in London or in the UK when in that time where I felt I needed to make a change. Like I've really noticed the difference since I moved country.
Mm. So why did you decide to choose acting in the first place? Was that always something that you wanted to do, or is there another career path that sort of was in your sights as you were growing up?
Yeah, good question. See, a couple of people have asked me this. I actually don't really have an answer because I can't remember making a decision. I don't think it ever was a decision. It was just the only thing. It was the only thing that I really cared about when I was at school, and other people who have been like the drama guy or the drama girl at school, the drama person for your year group where you play the lead role in all the plays and it's just your thing. It actually became like an identity for me. As a teenager. It's just what I did, and it's where I found my friends outside of school. So it's kind of my friendship group were based in the theatre, and then when I left school, it wasn't really a decision. It was just, okay, let's get started, and I did, and I still kind of feel that way. It's not really. It is it's such a huge part of my identity that it isn't really a decision. And I think in order to move away from it completely would be a huge shift in identity.
And you've moved from London to LA, as people know.
Yes.
Was that a difficult decision for you to make?
No, it wasn't actually. It was surprisingly easy. So when I was 25, I'm 30 now, by the way. Well, when I was 25, I moved to New York to pursue acting, because I'd been in New York about 6 months previously doing a workshop at an off-Broadway theatre, and I went back to because of the interest that I kind of found there in my because I'm an American citizen, and so I grew up in the UK, but I've got an American passport, and I think there was interest in me because of, I had a different accent basically, and
Americans love British accents. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, we're different here. In London, everyone has my accent, and I think I enjoyed being different in New York. But at that age, so anyway, the reason I'm telling the story is because when I went back to New York, I went to pursue what I thought was going to be a more interesting acting career. But I found that I wasn't quite ready to leave my life behind in London. Like I didn't give up my flat in London when I left. I subletted it kind of endless, like indefinitely, just because I didn't want to give up my spot, and I wasn't ready to leave, to move to another country from my family. And that whole period, although I loved New York, it's an amazing place to live. I recommend spending time there if people haven't, but I was very torn the whole time. This time when I decided to move to LA, it really felt like the right time in my life. I didn't feel any conflict about moving out of my place in the UK. I really am here wholeheartedly, and although logistically it's been challenging and it is difficult being in a new place where you don't know many people, I still am not torn about it. It feels really right.
I like how you mentioned everyone in the UK has your accent, but you're standing out, you're different. It's like, and for me to come over to America and have the Australian accent, apparently Americans love the Australian accent. I have no idea why.
They do. They get us confused.
Yeah, they think you're Australian and I'm British.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It's great. Yeah. But I always say the Aussies have sort of like a lower grade British accent in a sense.
Like a British accent with a smile.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But I love the British accent a lot, and the American accent too. I'm big on accents. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm listening to many people talk in accents all the time. Who knows? It's the weird curiosity for me. It's
fascinating. What's really fascinating for me is regional accents. Yeah. Because in the UK, I mean, we're such a tiny island, but the range of accents from all over the country is mind blowing. Like people can be born like 2 hours apart and have a totally different voice. It's insane to me.
It's like here, different states I feel like have a different personality as well. Like for Queensland, where I'm about to head up, they're more relaxed and chill, whereas Sydney-siders, they're more fast-paced. Let's go a lot quicker. There's no sense of real chill. And then different areas in Sydney, people, the way they act, the way they treat you. Like I'm from the western suburbs. So it's kind of like you're on edge a little bit. I don't know if I can say that without getting into too much trouble. But in Queensland, or even if you go into the city, there's a different way of living there, different style, different people. And then the accents as well. Like if you're in the city, their speech, the way they talk, it's very upended, very posh, like they out in the West, it's like bogan slang. Like we don't give a crap, that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm going off on a tangent there, but anyway, steering back to you, my friend. Yeah. So when you did come to LA officially, how long was it before you eventually got the lead role of Prince Cederic for, The Quest?
Yeah. Well, I booked that job when I was in the UK. So I did that last year from January to March. So I booked it when I was living in London and flew over to California during the pandemic and filmed here during the pandemic. Then I went back to the UK to film Masters of the Air, and I was on that for about 8 months in the end, until the end of the year. And when I finished up with that, I tied up some loose ends in the UK and flew over to California, which I had fallen in love with when I came to film The Quest.
Right. And so did you end up meeting Steven Spielberg?
I never met him, no.
Damn.
We filmed in the UK. I don't know if he was on set at any point. I never saw him. Tom Hanks was around though, one of the days, that was pretty cool.
So he was producing it, right?
Yes.
You got to meet him?
Not on my own. It was he spoke to the group.
Ah,
yeah,
right.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so what can we expect from that show before we dive into The Quest?
Well, you mentioned it's like a sequel to Band of Brothers, produced by Spielberg and Tom Hanks. It's very much in a similar vein to Band of Brothers. It's on a very big scale, huge cast, huge amount of supporting artists, huge sets. It's hyper realistic. It's brutal. It follows the boys that flew in the planes, and it's about their camaraderie and their relationships and their fear and their humor, and I think that's what's at the heart of the show. It's going to be, I think it's going to be amazing. If it's anything like Band of Brothers or The Pacific, it's going to be incredible.
Are you in a lot?
I'm in 3 episodes.
Hey, for the majority of the episode or just bits and pieces?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I was there a lot. It's difficult to tell what they're going to use. It's kind of out of my hands, but yeah.
Yeah, I know you probably can't say too much, which is totally fine, man.
Yeah, no, hopefully lots.
How about for The Quest? Are you in that a lot?
The Quest, I'm in it a lot, yeah. I'm one of the leads in that, and I'm in every episode. I've got a really nice character arc, and I would say Cederic is an important part of moving the story forward, and I was really thrilled with that.
How'd you go about forming Cederic, the character?
Yeah. I mean, the same way I go about forming any character, I guess it's looking at the starting point, looking at the finish point, and then plotting the journey and kind of looking at the moments that are most important in that character's discovery of themselves. Because I always think a character has to learn something about themselves as the show goes on. And for Cederic, it was okay. Look at the starting point. He's just lost his father. He's grieving. He's this kind of warrior prince. He's angry. He's combative. He's aggressive. He doesn't view others as equals. He's he's just a bit of a jerk. But he kind of learns how to collaborate throughout the series, and he kind of learns what it takes to be a king and not just an angry little prince. He learns what it means to become a man. So I looked at a couple of things. I looked at grief. I looked quite heavily at masculinity and what that meant to him, and where I could draw an experience in my own life to bring to the character. And then I looked at the genre a lot. I watched Game of Thrones. I knew Lord of the Rings inside out already, but I kind of had a mood board of characters from fantasy that I was able to kind of look at. I mean, there are elements of Richard Madden's character in Game of Thrones and elements of Jon Snow just like little reference points that I had. So I'd say those were like three things that I used.
I personally binge watched Game of Thrones not that long ago. So I kind of had that feeling of the Richard Madden's character in that, combining with your Prince Cedric from what I saw of the trailer.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. And Jon Snow, every time I hear of Jon Snow, I'm like, you know nothing, Jon Snow, like that line.
Yeah. You and everyone else. It's brilliant when a line is just so quotable.
One of my favorite one-liners, man.
It's good. Yeah, it's good.
You know nothing.
Jon Snow.
Anyway, my friend, I did want to touch on masculinity for a moment, because I think that's a very interesting topic that you brought up. And you're writing, I think it's a comedy series yourself.
Yeah.
In that realm. So I wanted to ask you, what did you discover that it means to be a man?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've discovered it, but what I am learning is that it's not what I thought I needed to be.
How so?
I'm going to speak from my own personal experience, because I don't have the same reference point as everyone, and everyone's from different backgrounds and, different cultures. And, but for me, there was this version of being a man, this kind of provider person that I think is born out of patriarchy. I think my upbringing was wonderful, by the way. I have no criticism of that, but I think that there's like a patriarchal society that I was grown up in, and I think my value system has had to change, and I think a lot of that. I think learning how to talk about my feelings and to be vulnerable, like actually vulnerable, is still a work in progress, but it's something I'm aware that needs the work. I think there were elements of body image that came into it, which is why I'm so passionate as a trainer. I'm a very, very empathetic personal trainer.
Yeah.
I'm very focused on mental health rather than improving one's relationship with their body and their body image. I just always felt like I think maybe it was to do with being an actor or wanting to be a leading man in inverted commas. I just felt like I needed to be this thing, this version of a masculine, manly man, and I don't really know. I don't have the vocab at the moment, but I think realizing that actually no one is that. No one needs to be that, and I think masculinity is something, certainly in gender politics, that is changing or needs to change to keep up with society as it evolves. Feminism's in its fifth or sixth wave, and I think that we might be lacking in mainstream resources as men in order to kind of learn how to keep up.
Mm.
I think it exists. Like, don't get me wrong, the resources exist. There's tons of books, and I read a really good one by Bell Hooks, which I think that was the best one. But there's a few really good ones that I read, and then there's loads of TED Talks, and it's definitely there to be found if you seek it out. But my interest in it being on television is to make it widely accessible, to make it funny, and to have it cater to a young male audience who are kind of facing masculine pressures as they, maybe in their early 20s, which is maybe when I started to kind of question things.
Mm.
So my show is based in a British football pub in a parallel universe where patriarchal men know how to talk about their feelings, and it's like a buddy comedy centered around like this kind of misfit group of guys. They're all pretty weird, and most importantly, very patriarchal in different ways from different demographics, and they kind of. In this pub, they kind of go on this journey of masculinity together, and I think the thing that I think is most interesting about it, other than it's, if I do say so myself, it's funnies. I think it's pretty funny. I think the thing that's really exciting about it is that I've given the male characters a depth of emotional language that I don't think I've seen in other shows on TV. And I think there are some, they might exist. I haven't seen them. And there are other shows that kind of look at these, that kind of skirt around issues, and some shows almost get there. But I haven't seen a show that is just about masculinity and men having sensitive, funny, intelligent, maybe even therapized conversations about sex and relationships and masculinity, and I think that's very exciting.
I think so too, man, and I can't wait to see it on screen. Like, so hopefully it happens sometime soon. But because you like books, I'll make one recommendation before I ask you the final question. This is one of my favorite books. It was by Lewis Howes. It's The Mask of Masculinity. The Mask of Masculinity. There you go. Forgot the title of my favorite book. One of my favorite books. But definitely check that one out. That is one of the most profound books when it comes to masculinity and how men tend to put on these different masks at different stages of their life. They can put on multiple masks if they want. There's different versions of, there's different forms of masks that we put on, which I found it fascinating to see how we can not only identify that mask actually exists in the first place and how we're putting it on, but also how we can take it off at the same time in the same vein. And it comes down to that vulnerability factor. But man, definitely check that book out.
Yeah, I'll read it.
I think you'll love it. I've got so many book recommendations. We can talk for hours on them. Yeah. But my final question for you, man, this is my all-time favorite question. I love asking all my guests at the very end. It is a hypothetical one. And because you're a filmmaker and you're an actor too, I think you'll appreciate it. But I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world. They got it all. We'll call it magic for the sake of argument, I know. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Such a good question. I want that film to show that I have done a lot of different things, that I have traveled to lots of different places and had lots of profound experiences, and that I have done lots of different jobs, and I have impacted other people's lives, and that generally I went through my life making people feel good in different parts of the world. I don't know. It's such a big question. I've never thought about that before. So on the spot, that's what I got.
Well, maybe I'm going to have you back on at a later date to continue this conversation, my friend, because I did have quite a few more questions for you. But nonetheless, I do appreciate your time today. People can go and see you in The Quest and Masters of Air very, very soon, I believe. Elliott, man, thank you so much for your time today, your wisdom, your advice, and of course, the many stories that you did share and the book recommendations too. Can't forget those. Thank you so much, man, for joining me today on the Storybox podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It was great.